We have lots to discuss here in today's video, including some new rumors around the Vancouver Canucks and the future of Quinn Hughes. Is there a possibility that he may want out now instead of in 2 years when his contract is up? We have some more comments from Jim Rutherford, kind of alluding to the fact that Quinn Hughes may not have a long future in Vancouver, and it's going to really be up to Quinn what he wants to do. But we'll discuss all the comments, the speculation about what his future is, plus some more talk around the LA Kings now that they've been eliminated by the Oilers. What changes might we see there? We have a bunch of new award finalists today, including the Hart, the Selke, and the Jack Adams, as well as the Lady Byng. Some more news on the NHL draft lottery, a bunch of injury updates from the eliminated teams, and some more playoff recaps coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we've got lots to discuss here today. Of course, last night was a big night in NHL playoff hockey. We had 4 Game 6s. I know many fans are hoping for multiple Game 7s, and we only got one out of that, which ultimately is Colorado versus Dallas. The Avalanche hung on, and it will force a Game 7 back in Dallas tomorrow night. It was lots of scoring. Both goaltenders probably would have had goals there that they would like to have had back, and the game-winning goal ended up being a very strange goal that you may have seen the highlights on it. If you haven't, check it out. But Nathan MacKinnon got credit for it, but it bounced off several Dallas Stars players and off of Colin Blackwell's shoulder and in. It was one of the most weird, bizarre goals, unluckiest goals you'll ever see. Turned out to be the winning one, like I mentioned. The Avalanche had a couple of empty netters afterwards, but yeah, it was a high octane offense kind of night for sure. So we'll see how Game 7 goes. The Dallas Stars certainly do have a better record more recently, and Peter DeBoer has a great record in Game 7s as a head coach. So we'll see if that plays a role. Of course, we saw the Battle of Ontario come to an end. The Maple Leafs exercise some demons and get out of the first round here again. They will now do battle with the Florida Panthers. It was looking like we might have another overtime game in that series with Senators forward David Perron scoring a goal off the back of Anthony Stolarz' head. It looked like it hit his back by watching the replay. It actually went off the back of his mask and in. It was a goal line shot, kind of a sharp angle. Low percentage play, but he got it just right and bounced in and tied up the game. But then Max Pacioretty, not long after, responded for the Leafs. I think it was about a minute and a half, minute 40 or something like that. Afterwards, he had good positioning. He kind of got lost out in front of the net in a fairly high danger area. Got a pass from Domi and found the back of the net. And of course, the Sens tried a hard late push trying to get it tied up, but just fell a little bit short. So Game 6 at the CTC goes the Leafs' way, and now they move on to play the Florida Panthers. We saw the Oilers take care of the Kings, as I mentioned in the opener. It was a little bit of a different game, considering how we saw the Oilers really run down and stomp all over the Kings in the previous games. It was a different kind of game. The Kings were more in it, had a little bit more offense going, but ultimately Edmonton was able to secure that one and get I guess the Kings, to me, just were kind of running out of gas. But ultimately, the high offense from the Oilers powered them through. And of course, we also had Vegas Golden Knights eliminating the Minnesota Wild in Game 6 there as well. Obviously, the Wild had a good fight, but the Vegas Golden Knights prevailed. And the Minnesota Wild, now I think they're the first team in sports to make the playoffs 8 out of 10 years and lose in the first round every single time. Not a good side of history, good stat you want to be on that side of, but ultimately, the Wild had a great regular season, but they need to learn to get over the hump in the playoffs like some of these other teams that unfortunately dropped their first round series. So for the most part, we have a lot of the second round series set. The East is set. We know it's going to be Toronto versus Florida, Washington versus Carolina. And of course, in the Western Conference, we don't have the matchups yet. We know it's going to be Edmonton versus Vegas. We don't know on the Central side of St. Louis and Winnipeg do battle tonight in Game 6. We'll see if Winnipeg can close it out or if the Blues can hang on here. The Jets are without Scheifele, who remains injured. I believe it's a concussion. Ehlers is back, and of course, Velarde came back to last game. So, you'll see how Hellebuck plays tonight. But the previous 2 games with the Blues, the Blues won with large margins there. So we'll see how that goes here. Of course, tonight, and we still don't know. Of course, the outcome of the Avs and Dallas, as I mentioned, they'll have Game 7 here tomorrow evening at 8 o'clock Eastern time. Of course, as I mentioned, we got some news today on the NHL Draft Lottery. This time it's going to be done for the first time ever, done live. Normally it's a pre-recorded segment. It's done, of course, with lots of witnesses and whatnot, but they are going to be doing it live in studio for the very first time Monday night, 7 o'clock Eastern time. We will see it live on TV. Who wins the first overall pick in the 2025 NHL Draft. As I mentioned, we got a lot of NHL award nominees and finalists announced here today. We got actually 4 of them, including the Adams, Bing, Selke, and Masterton. The Jack Adams nominees are Scott Arniel, the Jets, Spencer Carberry of the Washington Capitals, and Marty St. Louis in Montreal. Not really any big surprises there. I mean, there's 2 or 3 other coaches that I suspect will be, your 4, 5, 6 type of guys who had really good years, saw big improvements from their teams. I would imagine like Dean Evison of the Blue Jackets would get some love in there. I would say Travis Green in Ottawa got, not as many of these guys, but, decent little amount of maybe third place votes and whatnot. And then, looking around some other teams that had good years, you have to think, a guy like even Craig Berube and Paul Maurice, do you think they'd get some kind of consideration? Pete DeBoer. It seems like even though their teams have excellent seasons, some of these guys are great coaches with great resumes that have never won because their teams have been good the whole time. It seems to be defaulted to the team that improved the most, which is, certainly something to factor in, but it's unfortunate you see a lot of other great coaches that don't always get the acknowledgement, at least in my opinion. The Lady Byng finalists are Jack Eichel, Anze Kopitar, and Braden Point of the Lightning. The Selke finalists are Alexander Barkov and Sam Reinhart, both of the Florida Panthers, and Anthony Cirelli of the Tampa Bay Lightning. And the Masterton finalists are Marc-Andre Fleury, Gabriel Landeskog, and Sean Monahan. I'd have to think Landeskog's the favorite considering how long he's been battling to get back. I mean, that was a 3-year recovery process. I mean, the other guys have great stories as well. I mean, with Fleury, it's not like he's not deserving. He's an amazing guy, great player, had a great career. He had to persevere to keep going. But, the other 2 stories to me are just even more. With Monahan, of course, losing his best friend. Tragically, Johnny Gaudreau's passing, of course, last August, and between that and overcoming injuries, Monahan certainly has a compelling story of everything he's been through and had to overcome as well. I just think as much as those are good stories as well, and certainly guys that deserve a lot of recognition for how they had to battle and overcome things, Landeskog battling for 3 years to me probably is the front runner there, but we'll see what we find out. Some injury updates. We learn a lot, of course, on Locker Cleanout Day after teams are eliminated, usually about injuries and whatnot, and we start to learn some of the things about the Lightning and the Canadians here today. I know Tampa Bay Lightning general manager Julien Brisebois, one other thing besides injuries that he did kind of shut down was the future of John Cooper. There's been some rumors about him possibly winding up with Utah, not necessarily right away, but there was some talk that Tampa might consider a coaching change if they don't get out of the first round again. As much as he's been there for a long time, has a great resume, they've had a ton of success. It's been a while since they've been out of the first round. So is it time for a change, new voice? No disrespect to Cooper by a lot of people suggesting that. It just, at some point you got to think it's just time. But it's not time, according to Brisebois. We know that Cooper is under contract for at least one more season, and he just confirmed that he and the staff will be back. Like I mentioned before, though, some of the assistant coaches are being considered for other head coaching vacancies. So if they are not back, it's because they found an opportunity for a promotion elsewhere. So we do know that. We also know that Victor Hedman was playing with a broken foot. And lots of other injuries as well. I think Yanni Gourde had a broken finger and lots of other minor injuries and bumps and bruises. But nobody on the Lightning is expected to be having any kind of surgeries or anything that would require them to miss the beginning of next year. So by the time the fall rolls around, everybody's expected to be healthy and ready to roll. In Montreal, we learned the reason for the absence of Patrick Laine. And, of course, I kind of wondered if he really was hurt or if they were kind of covering for him, because he did have a couple of games where he just was invisible, wasn't skating hard, and I just kind of wondered what that what was really going on. And we did confirm that Patrik Laine had a broken finger, which makes sense because the main thing that Laine does well is shoot the puck. Laine said he's unable to hold his stick and unable to shoot the puck, which is why he was out of the lineup. Some other things he may have tried to play through. But he said the knee injury that he suffered in the preseason, which caused him to miss the first big chunk of the regular season, did feel good. He said he was quite happy with the fact that he decided to go through the rehab process instead of the surgery process because it worked out well for him. But yeah, some fans, of course, were on him about his effort and how hard he was skating and things like that. And clearly, if a broken finger is not going to impact your ability to skate hard. So yeah, I know fans weren't having a whole lot of mercy online today with Laine's comments. Samuel Montembeault apparently tore his groin. That was his injury, so he was unlikely going to return. The Canadiens would have had to. I'm not sure how deep they would have had to go for him to have a chance to come back, but it wasn't going to be anytime soon. So that's unfortunate. We also heard from Tampa Bay Lightning forward Brandon Hagel today, and he certainly was not afraid and didn't mince words when he was saying that he felt that the hit from Aaron Ekblad was purposely targeting his head. Of course, we know Hagel got suspended, and the hit on Barkov is kind of what started the whole thing. Basically, what he said is that he fully, and if you watch the video of both hits, I don't really think he's being dishonest or anything. He says on the hit on Barkov, he was expecting Barkov to play the puck, which would have made him eligible to throw the hit, which he thought was going to happen, and it didn't. So he did admit that, yes, the hit technically was illegal, but it wasn't going into it thinking, I'm just going to hit you regardless. He went into it thinking, you're going to be eligible to hit, and I'm going to, lay a hard check on you. That's really all it was. But he said when he took the hit from Ekblad, that he felt like he intentionally targeted his head. Obviously, he felt it was retribution for what happened with Barkov, which is he's probably right. He's probably fair. I'm sure he was targeted. But like he said, normally in the NHL, if something happens that the team doesn't like, they might target you, but, they might tell you that you have to answer the bell, you have to fight, or whatever. He said nobody said a word to him. He was never asked to fight. He said he would have answered the bell. He would have fought. He said even if he got his butt kicked, he would have done it anyway because he knows it's part of the unwritten code that that's something that needed to happen. But that was never the case. And he said Ekblad never reached out to him or nothing afterwards, but at the same time, I don't think he did it to Barkov either. So I understand part of the complaint, but like you said, we only have one brain. It's not something you want to mess around with. The fact that he was targeted, it wasn't shocked. It was just a deliberate headshot. If it would have been something different and a cleaner hit with no head contact, I don't think you'd hear him complaining. So yeah, I understand his complaints, and I don't really think he's wrong. But he certainly was not happy with Ekblad, and certainly appeared like he was kind of leaving that open for him getting some sort of retribution down the road. But, I get it. He started it. They ended it. But most head contact is not intentional. And he feels this one was. And it's hard to argue that he's probably wrong because if you watch the hit, to me, it does look that way. I kind of agree with him, but yeah, it's a rough series. You expect intensity in the playoffs, and that's unfortunately part of it. But you don't want to see intentional head contact at all. Now, of course, with the LA Kings being out of the picture in the playoffs now after 4 straight losses to the Oilers, of course, it's not a sweep, but it kind of felt like it. They dominated the first 2 games, and then Edmonton took over from there. You have to wonder what kind of changes we're going to see. Lots of speculation now about the future, not only about the roster. You think that there's always roster changes every year. I don't know that there's some obvious names that are going to be on the move, but you got to think that they'll change the mix for sure. But the big question I have for the LA Kings is who's going to be making those decisions. Now, I believe Rob Blake was on an expiring contract, and they decided to wait and see where the season went and everything before they went for the next contract. I know he's got a good relationship with team president Luc Robitaille, but I would think Luke's got to be asking himself here, maybe we need to make changes. Now, they rushed their rebuild because of Doughty and Kopitar whined and complained that they didn't want to go through one and that they wanted to remain competitive through their, I don't know what, remaining prime years or whatever you want to refer to it as. So, it's one of those situations that it was a weird way of going about the rebuild. Like if you look at their roster and how it was rebuilt, there's very little there in terms of drafted and development talent. Most of it came through trades and free agency. They really rushed things along. Yes, they got better. They've had some better regular seasons, but they've made no progress in the playoffs, and they've ran into the Oilers 4 straight years, and they've lost. And they went from 7 games to 6 games to 5 games, back to 6 games. But this was, to me, the one that was most embarrassing and the worst of all, because they had the Oilers on the ropes, and they gave them life. And to be honest, if I'm Robitaille and Blake, even if Blake stays, I'm changing the coach. To me, Jim Hiller screwed up royally with that Game 3 challenge. He led the Oilers back in it. Not only did he tie the game, he gave them the power play to take the lead, which took a whopping 10 seconds, and it was all downhill from there. You're not playing your third pair defense. You're not playing your fourth liners. I mean, it did change as the series went along. He did play those guys a little bit more and made a few changes. But between not playing the depth guys, and they felt like, to me, watching, maybe not so much the last game, but a lot of the other games, they were, games 3 and 4 especially, and to a degree, game 1 and 2. But they were able to get as less unscathed here. It just felt like in the third periods, they kind of take their foot off the gas and change their style. The Oilers almost had comebacks in the games that the Kings did win. It was that close. So, I don't know. I just don't think that I blame a lot on the coaching staff. It's just incompetence. Jim Hiller and DJ Smith, to me, are just not the guys to be running that team. I think they need a better coach. And, obviously Blake's moves as GM, for the most part, like the Dubois thing was bad. They got out of it, though, got themselves a goalie, and he had a phenomenal regular season. Didn't really have a good playoff. So I'm not sure, but at the end of the day here, the Kings need change. They're stuck in neutral, and, they have to do some things differently there. So be curious to see what kind of change they do see. Now, a couple other notes here. One out of Tampa, Julian Breezeball did also confirm, this will be a trade rumor to watch, is that it's very unlikely they sign one of the top prospects in Isaac Howard. We know after Howard's college season ended, many thought he would sign with the Lightning and turn pro, and it never happened, and they've had a lot of issues coming to terms on a contract. And right now, Breezeball is saying that based on his conversations with the player and representation, that it seems like it's very unlikely they're going to come to terms. He's either going to be traded or he'll go back to school and become a free agent. If they don't sign him, they do get a second-round pick back in 2027 for not getting him signed. So I don't know that's going to be a huge price tag. Teams will use that as leverage, that if he waits and signs, that they'll probably push for a similar compensation return. But look for Isaac Howard to probably be a prime asset for the Lightning to move for something else this offseason. And any teams that are looking for a younger player to add to their mix might want to give Julian Breezeball a call. Now, as I mentioned, some more big rumors around the Canucks. It seems like the drama around this team continues, and this won't go away, keep festering. But, of course, we have a bunch of quotes here from Jim Rutherford again after completing a podcast interview with John Shannon. And then, of course, another rumor around Quinn Hughes. So there's a big speculation that Quinn Hughes is not going to have a long future in Vancouver, which is terrible news for this team. It's the worst thing you want to hear if you're a Canuck fan. But it sure seems like at the latest, 2 seasons from now, he's going to find his way to play with his brothers. Or it sure seems that way. And based on the quotes from Rutherford, that it's I feel like he's setting the fan base up to start to come to terms with this and to accept it. But when Rutherford was asked about it, he said that we control him for another year and 2/3, because if we get to the trade deadline in 2 years from now and it looks like he doesn't want to stay, then we're going to have no choice but to do something. He also said, when asked about bringing in other pieces to try to change this team, when July 1 comes, I mean, we're not very often at the top of players' list. It doesn't sound like he's too optimistic he's going to be able to bring in much through free agency. Doesn't sound like he's too optimistic that Quinn's going to stay. Now, there's, like I said, another rumor, and it came from another podcast called Goat Radio, and they, take this with a grain of salt for now, but I will give them a little bit of credit that they've had info before ahead of some other reporters that have turned out to be legit. That's the only reason I'm even bringing it up. But there's some speculation from them that Quinn Hughes wants out of Vancouver, that his place that he lives in is up for sale, and he would rather not come back. Now, Rick Dollywald also said that he knows that Rick Tocchet talked to Quinn Hughes for sure before he made his decision not to return as head coach. And he says that basically that Rick would have known stuff that most of the other people don't, because they've had private conversations, and he's not going to, bail on this team for no reason. If he thought Quinn was going to stick around long term and he was happy with the direction of this team and wasn't so bogged down with all the drama the past year, he probably would have wanted to stay. So, obviously, nobody can speak for Rick Tocchet, and nobody can speak for what he knows and what Quinn has told him privately. But we sure get the feeling that Quinn has let Rick know that he doesn't intend to stay long term, and that he probably does prefer to move on and play with his brothers, which is a big reason why Tocchet is not staying, because we've heard it from a number of sources that Tocchet leaving was not about money. So the next biggest thing besides money, or maybe even bigger than money, is the future of Quinn Hughes. We've heard that he doesn't like the fact that there's no practice facility. Yeah, I can see that being a sticking point. I can see that being an issue that is difficult in attracting free agents. And I can see why the coach may not like that, because, again, it affects the team in different ways. Is it the primary reason or anywhere close to it that he would want to leave? No. He would have known this already, and I can see him wanting reassurance that it's going to be worked on and built, but I don't think he's going to turn down a ton of money if everything else is in order. So it really makes you wonder here what is accurate and what isn't. And if maybe, to be honest though, if you're Vancouver, you don't want to trade Quinn Hughes. It's like the worst thing that you would ever want to do. You know that you can't win those trades. You just can't. When you're trading the best player and the best player is that good, it's almost impossible to win. So you don't really want to go there. However, if you feel like you have to, you have to. Now, what Rutherford is saying is that they control Quinn because he's under contract for the upcoming season and the one after. But really, do you want to wait till his contract is almost expired and trade him for pennies on the dollar with no leverage? Or would you want to trade him with 2 years on his contract? Now, Quinn Hughes right now, of course, doesn't have the trade protection. So, he's not far off from getting it, though. If they make the trade, they technically don't have to trade him to the Devils to play with his brothers. They, in theory, could trade him somewhere else. And that other team may be under the impression that he's not going to stay beyond the 2 years. He's going to want to go to New Jersey and play with Jack and Luke. They may not care. They may give up big assets if they think Quinn Hughes helps them win the Stanley Cup next year or the year after. I mean, it's probably unlikely because it's a lot to give up for a short run. But still, there's options. Either way, it just makes you wonder if Quinn Hughes' exit could happen sooner than we might think. Now, it very well may not, and it very well could drag on another year, year and a half, year and 3/4, year and 2/3, whatever it is. Maybe it is until the last minute. I'm sure if he has to come back to Vancouver and play, that he will fulfill his contract. Preferring not to come back, do you really want somebody on your team who doesn't really want to be there? It might not be for the best, especially with all the drama and BS that this team has been through in the past couple of years. Now, there's also been some rumblings, as I mentioned, about the Aquilinis maybe looking to sell this team. Again, that has not been proven to be accurate just yet. It's being denied so far at the team level. But again, the same people that are talking about Quinn wanting to leave and sooner than later, they also had that rumor about ownership so I can't remember how many months ago it was. and now it's resurfacing through other sources. So that's why I just want to give their information a little bit of legitimacy and say, you know what, they've had enough before that we have to wonder about. Like, I can't just automatically dismiss it. This is something that they may be onto something here. So we're going to have to wait and see what happens. But Quinn Hughes is going to be a very interesting player to monitor over the next few months throughout this offseason. And if Jim Rutherford keeps doing these interviews, he's going to keep giving headline quotes like he always does. He's very well thought out. He's not going to say anything that's not really well thought and calculated, and we'll see where it goes. So let me know your thoughts. Are the Canucks in a real pickle here? Do they need to trade their captain? Is it going to happen sooner than later? Will they get a better return? Should they just rip the Band-Aid off now? Or do they wait and do it as late as possible and hope that something changes? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and we'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time.